Okay, to be completely honest, this was not our most requested team. We did get multiple requests to go over the Miami Dolphins, but I am mainly doing this because I am extremely excited about what the Miami Dolphins are doing. Now, y'all know that I do not have a favorite NFL team, but I think if I was forced to root for a team over the next 5 seasons, it would probably be Miami. With how they have built this team around Tua Tagovailoa, I mean, there are so many exciting things that we can look for, specifically for fantasy football. I mean, this is a team that has the upside to have a few potential league winners on this offense. So let's try to identify a player that we are buying, a player that we are selling, and a player that we are holding at their current ADPs for 2021 fantasy football leagues. But of course, for our next video, please go down to the comment section, leave a comment of whatever team you are wanting us to discuss. And more importantly, guys, I was surprised to see that only about half the people watching these videos are actually subscribed to the channel. So please, if you have not subscribed for whatever reason, make sure you go down there, subscribe, or even if you're a current subscriber, what we've actually been doing with every single video for the past month and what we are going to be doing going forward is we premiere all these videos. So if you come out during the video premiere, as soon as it's uploaded, I'm hanging out in the chat, I'm answering everyone's questions, and we're pretty much just having a good time. So make sure you hit that bell next to the subscribe button. That way you get notified whenever we are premiering that video and you can come out right away and hang out with everyone else. But that should be it. Let's dive into it. And no better player to talk about right now than one of my favorite buys at the quarterback position in Tua Tagovailoa. Okay, so here with Tua, I'm going to be completely honest. I was a little bit lower on Tua compared to consensus, specifically in dynasty formats last offseason. I was looking at the massive discount that we were getting with Justin Herbert, and I was nonstop drafting Justin Herbert every single time. And really, I just never paid up for Tua or Joe Burrow. But now I've actually found myself going through and trading for Tua in pre-established dynasty formats and in some 2021 redraft leagues. I guarantee you this is going to be a quarterback that I'm going to be targeting this season, because now you are getting him at a massive discount. I mean, his 2021 redraft ADP is at 143 overall. And this is a quarterback that we expected to have a bad rookie season. I mean, this is what I don't understand. We know that he had a very serious hip injury. I mean, at the time it happened, a lot of people were speculating that you weren't going to have Tua Tagovailoa playing football at all in 2021. So the fact that he came back and didn't necessarily live up to expectations shouldn't be held against him. This is a player that's only 23 years old. He was clearly not 100%. He clearly was not able to go through the entire offseason and get ready as a rookie quarterback should be able to, transitioning over to the NFL. So based on that, I think that if you're looking at his 2020 stats and trying to use those to project what's going to happen in 2021, you are not necessarily doing yourself a disservice, but you're not helping anyone because it's a completely different situation. I mean, it's kind of a night and day difference from not only his health factor, but also just the overall offense. Because we know the Miami Dolphins were a team that has pretty much been stockpiling assets through the course of the past few years. And now they are finally starting to spend those assets. They are finally starting to get guys in. Now, if you look at what PFF graded the offensive line for the Miami Dolphins at in 2020, now keep in mind, PFF grades are not always accurate, but I mean, it's not like I am an offensive line expert, so this is going to be a lot better than what I can do with my own analysis for their offensive line. But nonetheless, they had them graded as the 28th best offensive line in football. Now, I don't know if you know how many teams are in the NFL, but that puts them far below average. So knowing that they had one of the worst offensive lines in football in 2020, and now this team, this offseason, I mean, they make additions. They really don't lose that many pieces on their offensive line. They bring in 2 guys in free agency. They bring in Matt Skura from Baltimore. They also re-sign Adam Pankey as their backup offensive tackle. And they also go out and get a stud from Notre Dame in the top 40 picks of this year's NFL draft. So this is a team that should have a new center. They should also have a new starting offensive tackle, and they were able to retain the small depth that they already had. So I think that maybe you're not going to be expecting the Miami Dolphins to jump up to be a top 10 offensive line in the NFL this season, but they definitely should not be anywhere close to the bottom as they were a year ago. And more importantly, if you look around this offense and you look at the pass catchers that Tua is going to be throwing to, I mean, in 2020, if you're just going by raw receiving yards, so at this point, you're looking at what players were getting the most targets, what players played the most games. I mean, the top options for Tua the majority of the season. Keep in mind, also, Ryan Fitzpatrick had the majority of this production, to be honest. But nonetheless, I mean, he was throwing to Devontae Parker, Mike Gesicki, Myles Gaskin, and Jakeem Grant. Now, I like Devontae Parker, but do you want him as the wide receiver 1 on your offense? Preferably not. I mean, he was just never the player that they drafted him to be coming out of LSU. I'm sorry, coming out of Louisville. And if you're looking at Devontae Parker, I mean, really, he only had a strong second half to the 2019 season. And outside of that, not much else to rely on. Now, if you go over to what they're going to be having in 2021, I mean, this is a significant upgrade across the board. They signed Will Fuller to a very nice deal. I mean, 1 year, $8 million. Keep in mind, Will Fuller's been a player that has really never been able to stay healthy, and he's going to be serving a 1-game suspension to start the season. But also, they go draft Jaylen Waddle with the 6th pick overall. So bringing in both Will Fuller and Jaylen Waddle, I mean, this offense went from a team that didn't have too much speed on the boundaries. I mean, yeah, they had Mike Gesicki, one of the fastest tight ends in the entire NFL. But outside of that, I mean, Preston Williams and Devontae Parker, they're not going to be burners, especially not Jakeem Grant. But now you do have those 2 elite field stretching options coming in Will Fuller and Jaylen Waddle. Now Devontae Parker is going to be asked to play the wide receiver 3 role on this team. You have Mike Gesicki developing another year in this offense. So this offense should have upgrades across the board at wide receiver 1, at wide receiver 2, at wide receiver 3, at tight end. I mean, literally, you were seeing upgrades everywhere. Tua is now getting healthy. So I think Tua is a safe quarterback to invest into. It also is very encouraging in what you saw from this coaching staff last year with the subpar personnel to go out there and win as many games as they did with Ryan Fitzpatrick. So yeah, I mean, Tua, I have to label him as a buy. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks to actually target in this year's draft. Now, if we go over to the wide receiver that they just got in the NFL draft in Jaylen Waddle, I'm going to have to come out and say it right away. I think that Jaylen Waddle is actually going to be a sell for me if we were talking 2021 fantasy football. Now, Jaylen Waddle is someone that I really like in the long term, but the problem is, I mean, right now he is going within the top 100 picks in fantasy football drafts. And I simply think that's a little bit too rich for my blood. And we talk about this all the time. We talk about what you are trying to do as an NFL manager versus a fantasy football manager. Now, Jaylen Waddle can very easily be the second best wide receiver in this year's rookie drafts. I mean, he could very easily be that player for the Miami Dolphins that's going to unlock a ton underneath. But at the same time, he is not the wide receiver that profiles to see a ton of targets. He is more so someone that has that elite speed that really helps the offense, that really can create space underneath, because when Waddle's on the field, very similar to what you had with Henry Ruggs whenever he was active for the Raiders last year, I mean, the safeties, they're going to have to stay back. They're going to have to make sure that they give him their respect, because the last thing you can do as a defensive coordinator is let Jaylen Waddle beat you over the top for a 70-yard touchdown. I mean, that is pretty much the main reason why you are nonstop seeing these elite speed guys go at the top of the NFL draft every single time. That's why you see the Miami Dolphins give up a 2022 first as well as that 12th overall pick to go get Jaylen Waddle. So I'm not saying Waddle's going to be a very bad NFL wide receiver. I'm saying quite the opposite. Indeed. I'm saying that Jaylen Waddle is going to be a very effective wide receiver for what he is asked to do for the Miami Dolphins. But on the flip side of that, you don't necessarily have that translating to a ton of fantasy football value, because with those field stretching options, with those guys that have the elite speed, I mean, we saw this with Henry Ruggs last year. We see this all the time. I mean, you see this with John Ross getting selected at 7 overall from the Cincinnati Bengals in the 2017 draft. I mean, speed can help an NFL offense, and that player does not need to get targeted very often. Now, Jaylen Waddle, I think that he profiles to be a little bit different than what you had with Henry Ruggs, than what you had with Hollywood Brown, than what you had with John Ross. I'm not saying he's going to be in the same mold of those wide receivers. But what I am saying is if you go across the entire NFL right now and you go, okay, who are the fastest wide receivers in the NFL? Who are the guys that are stretching the field for their respective offenses and also are hyper productive? You have one player in that mold. You have one field stretching wide receiver that possesses that elite speed, that doesn't need a ton of volume to be hyper productive, and that is Tyreek Hill. And now Jaylen Waddle is a very good wide receiver on his own right, but Jaylen Waddle is no Tyreek Hill. And Tua Tagovailoa, while we love him, he is no Patrick Mahomes. So Waddle inside the top 100 picks in fantasy drafts this year. Honestly, I'm going to be fading him at this price, especially considering that he is a rookie coming in. We know rookie wide receivers, except the 2020 class, usually they take a little bit longer to produce. So yeah, Jaylen Waddle is going to be a fade for me at this price. Now, our next player we are going to be talking about is going to be Myles Gaskin. And I actually think that we are going to be calling Myles Gaskin a hold right now, because he is already going at 45 overall. So he's going to be going in the 4th round of your fantasy drafts this year. And you look through, and yes, Myles Gaskin was a very good running back in 2020. I mean, when he was healthy, when he was getting opportunity, this is a player that saw 14 rushes a game, but more importantly, he saw a little over 4 receptions a game. And we know how important that receiving down role is if you're going to be trying to get fantasy production. And we know that receptions generally come with more yards than what you're going to have rushes for, not to mention that you get those points per reception. So that's also going to help a lot. But nonetheless, he averages close to 100 total yards a game. He averages half a touchdown a game nonetheless. So Myles Gaskin, whenever he was in there, he was a very good running back in 2020. And now you're looking across the entire situation and you're going, hey, there's more speed on the outside. So those safeties are going to have to stay back. They're going to have a much harder time stacking the boxes. Also, this is a team that slightly upgraded the offensive line. So you should expect the run blocking efficiency to slightly go up. But I think there's one thing that's holding us back from going all in on Myles Gaskin. And that's the fact that this team goes out of their way to sign Malcolm Brown to that 1-year deal. And no, I'm not saying Malcolm Brown is going to be the starting running back for Miami. But I am saying that I think we are going to see Malcolm Brown play a very similar role to what he did in 2020 with LA. And that's a role that, no, he is not going to be a fantasy asset that you want to own, but he's going to be a leech for the other guys in the offense. I mean, he's going to be a leech for Myles Gaskin, where in 2020, with both Darrell Henderson and Cam Akers as the running backs on the Rams. And I think we can definitely agree that Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson as the 1-2 punch for the Rams is significantly better than what the Miami Dolphins have currently with Myles Gaskin and maybe Patrick Laird, if you want to say that he is their running back too. But nonetheless, I mean, Malcolm Brown, still with the better running backs in town, was able to accumulate a little over 6 rushes a game, a reception and a half a game, and 36 total yards at the same time. So the problem with going all in on Myles Gaskin is he simply doesn't have the team investment that guarantees him a 3-down role. He simply doesn't have the team investment where you can go, hey, we can safely project him for 300 touches. And I think them bringing in Malcolm Brown, Brown's probably going to see a very similar number. He's probably going to see 6 rushes a game. He's probably going to see maybe a reception and a half, maybe 2 receptions a game. And if he cuts into the receiving down usage for Myles Gaskin, it's going to be something we are a little bit concerned with. Still like Myles Gaskin as a running back 2 in fantasy. I just don't think he has that top 10 upside we would want to chase. Okay, so now let's bring in a player that was just added to this offense. Let's talk about Will Fuller, who is currently going in the 8th round of 2021 redraft leagues. Now, Will Fuller, only 27 years old. I know he came out in that 2015 NFL draft class, so he feels like he is way older than 27. We've been talking about him pretty much forever now. And also, Will Fuller, of course, we have to bring it up. Not only does he get popped for PEDs last year, but also, we know with Will Fuller, I mean, it's very hard to call a player injury prone in the NFL, but in the case of Will Fuller, I'm fine saying it. Will Fuller is an injury prone wide receiver. I think you can safely say that the injury rate for Fuller is going to be higher than league average. But nonetheless, you look at the games that he has played over the past 2 years, and keep in mind, this is with Deshaun Watson, a much better quarterback than Tua, much better quarterback, and that you should be expecting higher efficiency per target. But nonetheless, I mean, over the past 2 seasons, he's averaged 4.6 receptions a game. He's averaged 70 yards a game and half a touchdown to go along with this. And because we're talking redraft fantasy football right now, and you have both Will Fuller and a guy like Jaylen Waddle kind of going in back-to-back rounds, I think that I would rather just pay the extra 6 picks it's going to cost to get Will Fuller. Of course, you're very, very rarely ever going to be seeing Waddle go behind Fuller. But I think when both of these wide receivers are healthy, Fuller is going to be the guy that is seeing more snaps. I think he is also going to be the player getting more targets per snap. So yeah, we are going to be going with Will Fuller as a buy on this offense. I understand it's kind of a risky pick. You're kind of risking that you may be just throwing away your 8th round selection. But this is a guy that's been hyper productive whenever he's been healthy on the field. And that's a player that I really want on my team. Okay, so now let's bring up our last player for this offense, and let's talk about Mike Gesicki. And I will say, Mike Gesicki in the 10th round is a completely fair price point. I think we have to label Mike Gesicki as a hold where you're not going out of your way to draft him, but if you're sitting in the 10th and you need a tight end, you're completely fine with it. Yet, I will say, if it wasn't for what the Miami Dolphins have shown us, I would be all in on Mike Gesicki. I mean, we know with these tight ends, these guys that are elite athletes, generally, it takes them a little bit longer to develop at the tight end position, but whenever they finally reach their peak, these are the guys that have that elite upside. So with Mike Gesicki finally being 25 years old, I mean, Travis Kelce was a tight end that didn't hit 100 receiving yards in a season until he was 25 years old. I mean, now is the time for Mike Gesicki to come in and break out. Now, the one thing that's making me hold back a little bit with Mike Gesicki is the fact that it looks like this coaching staff, it looks like this front office is not in love with him. And that's because of two things. And I know a lot of people are going to hate that I'm bringing this up, but I am still convinced that this team moved that 12th overall selection as well as that future first to get to that 6th pick overall, going, hey, if we map it out, most likely the Bengals are going to be going with Chase. Maybe the Falcons go with Fields and we end up getting Kyle Pitts falling in our lap, because I don't see this team willingly trading that 12th overall selection, a pick that pretty much you saw Devonta Smith go right there, and also that future first to go up and get Jaylen Waddle. I mean, are you going to be telling me that Jaylen Waddle is worth an extra first on top of Devonta Smith? I don't think that was the plan for the Miami Dolphins. I think more so they were putting themselves in position to possibly get Kyle Pitts falling to them at 6th. Of course, that doesn't happen, but nonetheless, that's a little conspiracy theory that I have. And I think it's confirmed as well by them deciding to go kind of off the board for where a lot of people are expecting by drafting Hunter Long in the 3rd round. And now Hunter Long is not someone I'm expecting to get a ton of snaps in 2021, not someone I'm expecting to really take a lot away from Mike Gesicki. But based on the team and what they are showing us, it kind of looks like Mike Gesicki isn't locked into a role that we would want to be expecting. And even if this is a profile that I really like, even if this is a tight end that I think would traditionally be on the verge of a breakout right here, I don't think the coaching staff, I don't think the front office is in love with Mike Gesicki. So it's going to make me a little bit hesitant on going all in and calling him a buy. Now, thank you guys. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. Of course, if y'all did, go down there, drop that like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. Now, please, when you're down there in the comment section, if I said anything you don't agree with, let me know, but I need to know why you don't agree with it. I need to know what your opinion is on the matter. And also, let me know what team y'all want me to do next. And yeah, I'll see y'all with the video tomorrow. Thank you so much for everyone supporting the show on Patreon. And Dominic, Jim, Carl, Jesse, Tyler, Eric, Colby, Cameron, Mike, and Marcus, thank you guys.